economic growth. 黄月 CGTN 北京。
China is making significant advancements in nuclear fusion energy innovation. Duang Shuru is a chief nuclear fusion scientist at China National Nuclear Corporation and a member of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, China's top political advisory body. He spoke to CGTN's Chong Yibing about the development of China's artificial sun reactor and China's role in the international nuclear fusion engineering project known as ITER.
How is China's new generation of artificial sun is progressing? And when will its power generation become a reality?
The operational capability of the nuclear fusion device indicates the level of a country's nuclear fusion research. China's Huanliu 3 and East nuclear fusion experiment equipment showed that the country has been ranking in the first tier. To achieve commercial use of nuclear fusion energy in the middle of this century, we still face a series of bottlenecks, including fusion plasma steady-state combustion and fusion reactor materials. To solve these, we need to strengthen collaborative innovation with enterprises, research institutes, and universities. The national team should further deepen cooperation with the market. And in order to meet the urgent needs of applications involved in the development of nuclear fusion energy, China should lay out in advance plans to build a scientific nuclear fusion regulatory system.
China has been undertaking important tasks in the ITER project. Could you tell us what role China is playing in this project?
The International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, the world's largest artificial sun, is one of the largest and most far-reaching international scientific projects based in France. It carries the good wishes for the peaceful use of nuclear fusion energy. As one of the 7 members of the ITER project, China has undertaken the development of several key systems such as nuclear components, magnet supports, superconducting conductors, and diagnostics. Now, ITER has entered the critical stage of assembly, and a Sino-French consortium led by China National Nuclear Corporation is the sole contractor for the installation of the main engine of ITER project. In the next 3 to 5 years, China will continue to undertake a number of core tasks of key components, train and send high-quality personnel to ITER, and contribute more strength and wisdom to the global fusion energy research.
China's AI advancements are making headlines at this year's 2 sessions. Companies like DeepSeek, which recently opened its large language model to global developers, are reshaping the country's leadership in AI. In an interview with CGTN, Wang Jian, an academician at the Chinese Academy of Engineering, described the shift as moving from open source code to open source innovation.
And you can see in the last, a couple of months, actually, the DeepSeek actually changed the landscape of the large language model, how we could do with that, okay. So it's a big change. But I want to extend this a little bit, and I think it's very important. But thinking about when you open the large language model, you basically open a lot of resource to the public, okay? So I would say eventually with AI, open source is not the word could cover, it's really the very fundamental things. So I would call it open resource innovation. Just like DeepSeek, they opened their large language model, and so the millions of people around the world could do a lot of innovation things. Probably the people at the DeepSeek never could imagine. Okay, this is what we see already when they open the large language model. So I would say we are under the transformation from open source code only to really open the resource. So I call it open resource innovation. Yeah. So I see it's a great achievement and it's a great opportunity. And the challenge is really what we can keep this moving much fast and forward, okay. So I would say I can see that actually with the DeepSeek, a lot of other technology from China will be open to the rest of the world. And that's our contribution to tech community around the world, yeah.
Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa has called for national unity after reports of over 1,000 deaths in violent clashes along the country's coast. Fighting broke out on Thursday between the new security forces and loyalists of the former government in the Mediterranean region, the stronghold of the Alawite minority to which ousted President Bashar al-Assad belonged. International watchdogs say the violence has escalated into the most significant challenge to al-Sharaa's government since his forces took power late last year. Russia says it is engaged in a large-scale offensive to take back territory seized by Ukraine in the Kursk region. Ukraine says Russia has struck the Donbas region, killing at least 14 people. The fighting comes amid a push to end hostilities. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will meet Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Monday in Saudi Arabia. Riyadh will host U.S.-Ukraine talks for an initial ceasefire and future peace deal between Kiev and Moscow. The U.S. has confirmed its delegation will be in Saudi Arabia this coming week. Ukraine says its representatives will meet the U.S. team. Meanwhile, the European Union's foreign policy chief says Russian President Vladimir Putin has little interest in peace following attacks on Donbas. Israel and Hamas have signaled readiness to begin the second phase of Gaza ceasefire negotiations. A Hamas delegation in Cairo has reported positive indicators for the start of talks after meeting Egyptian and Qatari mediators. The Israeli Prime Minister's office says its delegation will head to Doha on Monday. The talks come more than a week after the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal ended. Amid the push for diplomacy, Israeli airstrikes killed 2 Palestinians in Rafah in southern Gaza. The second phase of the negotiations have been delayed due to disputes over the release of hostages and Hamas's demand for Israel's full withdrawal from Gaza. Egypt's plan for the reconstruction of Gaza appears to be receiving increasing support. Cairo has proposed the full development of the Palestinian enclave while protecting its more than 2 million people from forced migration. Despite Israeli and U.S. objections, Egypt is rallying global support to push for an international conference for Gaza's reconstruction to be held within the next few weeks. Adel Makhroui reports.
After being endorsed by the 22 Arab nations on Tuesday for its vision to reconstruct Gaza, Egypt has been rallying international support. On Friday, it received wider backing for its plan during an extraordinary foreign ministers' meeting between the 57 members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation held in Saudi Arabia. The next day, Britain, France, Germany and Italy collectively said that the plan shows, quote, a realistic path to the reconstruction of Gaza.
The speech of the President of the European Council at the Arab Summit clearly showed the strength of support this plan has from the European countries. Countries like Spain and Ireland earlier showed support. I don't think any country in the world would object to the Egyptian plan except the United States and Israel. Rallying international backing for the plan can put pressure on the US to accept it in the end and make the plan implementable.
Based on reports issued by UN bodies and the World Bank's IRDNA, Egypt created a $53 billion plan to completely rebuild Gaza by 2030. But Cairo's plan challenges US President Donald Trump, who suggested all Palestinians be forced out of Gaza. According to Egypt, 460,000 permanent houses will be built to accommodate some 2.7 million people. The Egyptian vision aspires to build 2 seaports and an airport to end Israel's siege of Gaza.
The plan is negotiable and subject to further development, which I believe is the reason behind its success. In the end, everyone wants a practical and implementable plan. It's also a political, economic and security plan that engages with all issues in Gaza. A two-state solution is part of it, and reaching peace with Israel is essential for the plan. It's a realistic plan. That's why it is getting a lot of international support.
Egypt is addressing issues such as reclaiming agricultural land, nearly 70% of which has been destroyed by Israel's unprecedented bombing campaign. It also wants the Palestinian Authority, as an internationally recognized body, to cover Gaza instead of Hamas. Cairo is using its decades of experience in clearing unexploded World War II ordnance, as well as its recent experience in developing dozens of new cities to do the same in Gaza.
Egypt says it will create a diplomatic committee to lead talks with the United States about its plan. But Washington says the Egyptian vision does not live up to President Trump's aspirations. Egypt has also vowed to hold an international conference for Gaza reconstruction, even in the face of Israeli and United States objections to its plan. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
U.S. Secret Service agents have shot an armed man near the White House. A spokesperson says the agency had earlier received a tip-off from local police of a suicidal man traveling to Washington from Indiana. The agents later spotted the individual matching the description early morning on Sunday, and an armed confrontation ensued. The suspect has been hospitalized and his condition is unknown. U.S. Secret Service said there were no injuries to members of their personnel and that the incident is now under investigation. President Donald Trump was not at the White House during the incident. Well, let's now shift our focus to the situation in Upper Nile State in South Sudan. Calm has been reported in Nasser County after heavy clashes between national forces and the so-called White Army, a militia that Salva Kiir's government has linked to forces loyal to Vice President Riek Machar. A UN helicopter trying to airlift soldiers was attacked in the violence on Friday, killing a UN crew member and several South Sudanese soldiers, including a general. Several countries, including the UK and Germany, have strongly condemned the attack. In the past week, security forces loyal to President Salva Kiir have arrested 2 ministers and several senior military officials allied with Vice President Machar, who entered a power-sharing agreement with Kiir in 2018 to form the current unity government. However, the Minister for Peace Building, Stephen Parkwall, was released. South Sudan's National Security Service said the crackdown will continue on individuals suspected of involvement in recent clashes in Nasser and Ulang counties in Upper Nile State. Meanwhile, Sudan's Minister of Minerals has accused South Sudan of allowing the United Arab Emirates to establish what he called an aggression base under the guise of a field hospital in Eastern Awale. Eastern Awale County is approximately 64 kilometers south of the Sudanese border with South Sudan. The Madol Field Hospital was inaugurated on Friday by the UAE's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. Our correspondent Patrick Oyet reports from Juba.
The issue that we expect if the government is going to react is that is a normal thing, because in South Sudan there are hospitals along the borders. By the way, in the Awil East County, Awil borders that county that they're complaining about borders Sudan. And as you know, fighting has been going on in Sudan, and some wounded people, of course, whether they are civilians or among the forces, they are always treated in some of those hospitals that are at the border. I think that's why there is this concern from Sudan. But South Sudan will say that it has hospitals across the borders. If you go to the border between Uganda and South Sudan, there's hospital in Nimule. If you go to Warab, the border between Sudan and South Sudan, there's a hospital in Woonrock. If you go to Reng, there's a hospital at the border. And then the one in Awil also is the same, is at the border, but is on the side of South Sudan. And the reason majorly is because in the recent past, there have been a lot of cases of diseases that are contagious, like the issue of cholera, the issue of Ebola, and now even the Mpox. And the government is saying it is really improving surveillance at the border so that it controls these diseases. But for now, there has been no official response from South Sudan's government yet regarding the hospital in the northern Bahr Ghazal state.
Well, let's turn to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where fighting between the Congolese army and M23 rebels has continued for 3 days in Masisi territory in North Kivu province. Civil society groups have reported civilian casualties and massive depopulation displacement. Meanwhile, at least 5 civilians have died in an attack suspected to have been carried out by ADF militants. The rebels besieged the town of Bahambu Ngite in the territory of Beni in North Kivu before carrying out the killings. The violence has displaced many families in the area. The 5 civilians were sleeping when they were murdered. The president of Batangi Mbau Civil Society says the ADF fighters also looted property and stole animals from farms they raided. And we're staying in the DRC for the moment, where the escalation of the conflict in the eastern part of the country is beginning to affect neighboring countries. In Burundi, traders and farmers from the western region of Gatumba have found themselves without jobs. CGTN's Sharon Baranga reports cross-border trade has almost come to a standstill, with freight traffic dwindling.
The ripple effects of the conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo are now being felt in the Gatumba region in neighboring Burundi. Trade between the DRC and Burundi had been thriving until fighting between Congolese government forces and M23 rebels intensified in recent months. Now, people living in Gatumba say earning a living has become more difficult as trade between the two countries has almost stalled. The transport sector has been hit hard by this turn of events. Lionel Shingimokiza, a motorcycle taxi driver, says his business has been badly affected by the fighting in the DRC.
As far as our work is concerned, nothing has been going right for the last few days. We used to make a living with this job of transporting people by motorbike from here to the border of the Democratic Republic of Congo. But since the conflict broke out in this neighboring country, customers have been hard to come by because so many people are fleeing the war. Our business has dropped considerably.
And it's a considerable drop, one that's having an impact on the earnings of many Burundian families working on the number 4 national road linking Bujumbura and Uvira town in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Before the war got this bad, we could transport at least 100 people a day. But today, everything has become complicated, and we find ourselves transporting 20 people, at most 30 a day.
Local shopkeepers and butchers say their businesses have also been hit hard by the absence of Congolese customers.
Here, if the Congolese don't come to buy meat from me, it means a huge loss for me and for my stock. In other words, our customers are those who come directly from the DRC. They help these mothers who spend the day here and have to go home in the evening with their ration money. So their absence from our premises is a huge loss.
Meanwhile, in Burundi's economic capital, Bujumbura, at the market commonly known as Shisio, where Congolese often arrive to buy supplies, trade is not moving as smoothly. Sales have dried up. The drop in customer numbers has badly affected accessory traders like Levin.
Based on the movement we had in our market, if we try to compare before and the current situation, there is a big change. At first, we had enough customers because of the Congolese movement, but now you see, we are in a desert. They don't come anymore. We can't have anything if the Congolese don't come here to shop.
According to statistics from the Burundian Revenue Authority, in the fourth quarter of 2023, more than 89% of Burundi's exports to Central African countries were destined for the DRC. The DRC is thus a major market for Burundian products. Similarly, some Burundian traders, particularly loincloth sellers, obtain their supplies from the DRC. For many Burundian traders, what happens in the DRC affects their everyday life in Burundi. They are hoping that peace returns to the neighboring nation so that they can go back to the good old days of booming cross-border trade between Burundi and the DRC. Sharon Baranga, CGTN.
And let's turn our attention to sports news now and begin with rugby. After 2 days of intense high-action rivalry, Portugal's men's team and Kenya women's team took top honors at the second round of the World Rugby HSBC Sevens Challenger 2025 in Cape Town. The Kenya Lionesses delivered a commanding performance to blank host South Africa 7-0 in the final of the second leg of the World Rugby Sevens Challenger Series in Cape Town, completing back-to-back tournament victories in style. The triumph solidifies the Lionesses' dominance in the competition and brings them closer to securing core status in the HSBC SVNS Series for the 2026 season in what will be their first ever appearance. In the men's event, Portugal and Germany played out a tight game, with the match ending 12-7 in favor of the Portuguese. In Spain, Barcelona's La Liga match against Osasuna on Saturday night was postponed following the death of the Catalan club's first team doctor Charles Minaro Garcia. The game was scheduled to start at 20 GMT but was called off after 20 minutes before kickoff. Fans had already arrived at Barcelona's Olympic Stadium as Hansi Flick's side prepared to extend their 1-point lead at the top of La Liga against their 11th placed visitors before news of the postponement was announced on the big screen. Tributes started pouring in for the family of Garcia, who was a beloved figure at Barcelona. Some German football news now, where VfL Bochum left Bayern Munich fans speechless at the Allianz Arena on Saturday with a come-from-behind 3-2 victory in their Bundesliga match. The visitors looked to be headed home with their tails between their legs after Rafael Guerreiro scored twice within the first 30 minutes to give Bayern a 2-0 lead. However, Jakov Medic managed to pull one back for Bochum just after the half hour, and then the momentum shifted. Bayern's João Balhina was sent off for a poor challenge just before the break, and Bochum pounced. Ibrahima Sissoko leveled shortly after, and Meta Zero put Bochum ahead with 19 minutes to go, allowing the visitors to seal a famous victory. Elsewhere, Bayern Leverkusen suffered a shocking home defeat to Werder Bremen in the Bundesliga on Saturday. The visitors took the lead in the 7th minute through Romano Schmidt after a poor defensive display from Alonso's side. The hosts pushed for the equalizer, but Alex Garcia's free kick was denied by the crossbar before the break. In the second half, Werder Bremen goalkeeper Michael Zitera pulled off two superb saves, denying Ezequiel Palacios. Leverkusen suffered another setback as Florian Wirtz was forced off in the 59th minute following a challenge from Michel Weiser. The visitors sealed the win in stoppage time with a counter-attack as a substitute. Justin Njiman slotted past Lukas Redic to make it a 2-0.
Yeah, today everything went against us and everything went badly for us. The result, the game, we didn't play good. And the situation with few players looking for Tuesday, but for me it's almost over. The game is over. We need to forget it as quick as possible and think about the next one.
Tennis and Botic van de Zandschulp scored a major upset on Saturday by stunning five-time champion Novak Djokovic 6-2, 3-6, 6-1 at the BNP Paribas Open in Indian Wells. The Dutch player capitalized on an uncharacteristically error-strewn opening set from Djokovic before conjuring some inspired shot-making prowess in the decider to prevail in 2 hours, 1 minute. By securing his 8th victory over a top-10 opponent, Botic notched back-to-back wins on the ATP Tour for the first time in 2025.
No excuses, you know, for poor performance. I don't know, just it doesn't feel great when you play this way on the court. But congratulations to my opponent, and you know, just a bad day in the office, I guess, for me. And just, you know, I regret for the level of tennis, considering how I practice these days. You know, to be honest, the difference between the center court and the other courts, I mean, is immense. The ball is bouncing on the center courts, you know, higher than some of the highest clay courts, to be honest. So yeah, just struggled a lot with that. I couldn't find the rhythm.
And finally, tennis and Sergio Garcia has won an LIV golf tournament for only the second time as he registered a final round 63 in Hong Kong on Sunday. Garcia had begun the day in a three-way tie for the lead with Peter Ullane and Paul Casey, and he quickly pulled away thanks to a monster put for eagle on the third. It was a double win for Garcia as his Fireballs Golf Club were named team champions. Abraham Anser, along with Garcia, helped the Fireballs climb from 4th to 1st with a round of 65. Then Luis Massaviu recovered from a difficult front nine to make a birdie on what would be his final hole to get the Fireballs over the line. And we'll leave it there on this edition of Africa Live. Remember, you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen, and do follow us on our digital media platform. Thank you for watching. I'm Beatrice Marshall in Nairobi. From me and the team here on Africa Live, bye-bye from Africa.
climate is undergoing significant changes.
Yes.